The Abyss is a strange plane of oblivion consisting of an endless series of corridors and rooms, both real and illusory at the same time, which collectively forms a seemingly never-ending dungeon. Few have survived exploring its immeasurable reaches, and none have ever truly conquered it in its entirety. The Abyss appears to date back to the early First Era, when Ayleids had dominated over Cyrodiil. A sorcerer king known as Celimero Lightbringer had turned into a lich and desired to conquer the world. Because of this, his brother Valentis had bound him utilizing an Elder Scroll after a failed revolt. Nearly every trace of him was erased from documented history. It is told that the Lich and the Abyss are somehow forever connected as a valid union of the damned, but that one did not conceive the other. The ancient Ayleids were known to have constructed abyssal altars devoted to the Lich. In the 4th Era 175, a warrior was requested to enter and delve into the Abyss by a madman named Theodore Gorlash, an anagram of Lord Sheogorath, who was likely the Daedric Prince Sheogorath in disguise. An entrance to the Abyss had been made accessible within an ancient crypt relative to the warrior's home village in the Kingdom of Bloodfall, which had been built over top the ruins of where the Lich Celimero had been incarcerated. The entranceway to the Abyss corresponded with the return of Celimero Lightbringer after his seal had been broken. Well acquainted with the crypt since childhood, the warrior had commenced through the portal and delved deeper and deeper into the Abyss, encountering waves upon waves of enemies, until their eventual return to the surface world with treasure in hand. The rooms and corridors in the Abyss are all quite diverse in their appearance. Each floor contains varied architecture and enemies. The rooms appear to take the form of caves, ancient Ayleid ruins, and the interior of imperial garrisons. These rooms appear to be inhabited by an infinite number of diverse enemies, including that of mortals, goblins, Tamrielic fauna, undead, and even dragons. Badman's Hollows is a pocket dimension of Oblivion, with a giant tree as its center. The tree is actually a Daedra lord of some sort that acts as an aqueduct for dark energy to enter the tree's roots. As the tree became larger, so did the dimension itself. In the 2nd Era 582, a group of mages were testing the limits of conjuration magic, and were able to conjure a Dremora lord in search of divine knowledge and simple curiosity. This was incredibly dangerous to commit, and was forbidden by the Mages Guild. This, however, did not stop the mages, and they were able to summon this Dremora lord utilizing a number of different gems. This summoned Dremora managed to kill the majority of the mages, and corrupted the rest of them to do its bidding. It then took on the form of an ancient Breton harvest god named Shior, also known as the Badman. The Badman would force his possessed followers to trick naive adventurers into the tree's glen into burning food as part of some sort of harvest festival, to in turn drain their souls and continue to feed the tree more power, in turn expanding the realm even further. Eventually, the vestige had arrived and was persuaded to engage in the harvest festival. The tree consumed the vestige, but their undying nature managed to make them survive in the roots beneath the tree, where they had met with one of the captured mages. The roots beneath were home to many dangerous creatures, along with summoned undead. With the aid of the surviving mage, they used the supplies they gathered from within to burn the roots, and collected the gems that were utilized to summon the Dremora in the first place. The vestige was then sent back to the glen, where the season of harvest had commenced. The Badman then set the glen on fire, and the vestige had burned the remaining supplies on an offering altar. The Badman arrived at the tree to clash with the vestige directly, but had failed and was killed. Utilizing the summoning gems, one of the mages promised the vestige that the Badman was forever banished and could never enter Nirn again. The Chimera of Desolation is a minor realm of Oblivion, constructed by Mehrunes Dagon. It was once a small island called Caesali that was once off the coast of Hyrok. The entire island was ejected into the void of Oblivion as an act out of revenge against Chimera Grigan, a mortal conjurer who resided there. 2 abandoned towns had still remained on the isolated isle, and this plane was once accessible through the use of the Battlespire. But the passage was detached by Dagon's invasion of the edifice during the Imperial Simulacrum. The small Plane of Oblivion can be divided into 3 parts. In the southeast sits an abandoned town along with a chapel, and a large fortress to the north. The northern section is home to the plane's only resident, who is forever trapped there. Off the northeast coast sits a barricaded town that sits atop an island surrounded by steep cliffs. The exact time and date when the Chimera of Desolation was created is unknown. It is assumed to have been created sometime prior to the Third Era 172, when a Direni clan member named Chimera Grigan had made a pact with Mehrunes Dagon. He held the desire to live happily in his home along with his friends and family eternally. Chimera had plotted against Dagon, and seemingly won, expelling him into oblivion. However, Dagon had enough time to react, and corrupted the physical words of Chimera's pact. Mehrunes Dagon heaved the isle into the void of oblivion, killing all residents on the island except Chimera Grigan, who was granted immortality, but still cursed with aging conditions such as painful arthritis. When the Battlespire was created, it became linked to various planes of oblivion. Because of this, apprentice battle mages were able to enter the plane through a portal from Shade Perilous, a territory of Nocturnal's plane. Ultimately, the Chimera of Desolation had become the site for the ritual of the Innocent Quarry, also known as the Wild Hunt or the Great Hunt, which is a Daedric rite of ancient origin that sapped energy from the stream of magicka that surrounded the plane. Those who created this ritual and when it was created is unknown, but when commenced in the correct way, the rite brought significant power and esteem to one who was known as the Huntsman. The ritual involved setting the huntsmen and their Daedra against the mortal known as the Innocent Quarry, or simply known to the hunters as the Hare. The huntsman's goal was to corner and slay the Hare, while contemplating on the philosophy behind the nature of the hunt itself. Many Daedra examined that becoming the huntsman was of the greatest honor. The ritual started at the Chapel of the Innocent Quarry, a giant green crystal structure, and the only edifice constructed by the Daedra who resided on the plane. The lesser dogs, or Daedra, gathered themselves outside, while inside the huntsmen, the greater dogs, and the master of the hunt carried out rites to commence and glorify the huntsman, the hunt itself, and the Innocent Quarry. After this, the huntsman emerged along with the Spear of Bitter Mercy and chanted the offices of the hunt. The offices of the hunt included describing the 4 stages of the hunt: the drag, the chase, the call, and the view to the kill. In the drag, the lesser dogs drove the hare out into the open. The chase was strategized by the greater hounds, who would chase the hare. They then would corner the hare amidst the call, and then conjured the huntsman for the kill. Finally, in the view, the last stage, the huntsman slayed the hare with the ritualistic Spear of Bitter Mercy, then called out to the master of the hunt to view the slaying by ringing the town bell. After the hunt was deemed finished, the master of the hunt then bequeathed the bounty upon the one who made the successful kill. They were then allowed to title the next hare for the next hunt, but was not allowed to participate in the next hunt. The huntsman, master, and hounds are sworn to honor the offices or law of the hunt. The law rigidly construed all details of the hunt, such as how many of them could take part in it, how the Spear of Bitter Mercy could be wielded, and so on and so forth. Another thing of note, the law declared that the hare must have a chance to escape the hunt, no matter how unlikely that chance was. This typically took the form of 6 keys, which, if gathered by the hare, would allow them to open a portal and escape the Chimera of Desolation. The Daedra regarded the escape to be highly impossible, but recognized failing to supply the chance of escape as a shameful and unforgivable betrayal of the law of the hunt. Furthermore, the ritual of the hunt gifted the huntsman a safeguard from all attempts of attack, including weapons and magic. The only omission was a huntsman's own spear. A single prick of the Spear of Bitter Mercy meant immediate and absolute death, whether the victim was the hare or the huntsman. It was understood that only the most powerful of Daedra were unaffected to the fatal effects of the spear. In the Third Era 398, Mehrunes Dagon's armies attacked and conquered the Battlespire with Imperial Battle Mage Yeagar Tharn's blessing, who was also masquerading as Emperor Uriel Septim VII, with the portal to Tamriel barricaded. An apprentice battle mage stuck within the Battlespire, made it to the Chimera of Desolation and had become the hare in the Wild Hunt. However, the apprentice was helped by both Old Chimera and Clan Gamora. One of the huntsmen was a Daedra called a Hearn, named Egahim. It was his first hunt, and he was gifted the honor of delivering the kill. However, in order for promised victory, he kept one of the 6 keys required for the hare to escape. This was a clear infringement on the law of the hunt, and it did not rest easy with many of the other participants. Although it gave forth an opportunity, when he deceived Mehron's Dagon, Chimera bore the armor of the Savior's hide, which cushioned the wearer from attacks by anyone considered an oathbreaker, which Egahim was by violating the law of the hunt. The apprentice salvaged the Spear of Bitter Mercy, bore the Savior's hide, and was able to kill Egahim and escape this plane of oblivion. Detritus is a horrendous demi-plane of oblivion, dominated over by Ha-Lu-Zek, better known as Hollowjack, a powerful Daedra lord who encompassed mortal fears. This plane has been characterized as a half-world, and is a plane filled with unspeakable horrors. Every year during the Witches' Festival on the 13th of Frostfall, the portals between Nirn and Detritus open temporarily, and grisly items from this plane flood the markets across Tamriel. Hollowjack receives his powers by feasting on the fear of mortals, and his plane is devoted to this very purpose. Detritus is characterized as a claustrophobic sequence of cramped, cluttered spaces, disarrayed with broken and lost personal possessions of mortals. Hollowjack lavishes there in the collection of junk, shattered memories and fears, organizing and categorizing them to find new fears inhabiting mortals' minds. There is no such thing as outside in Detritus, only room after room of nightmares and inner fears. Hollowjack states that this is because mortals fear most what is inside themselves. Treasures often taken from this plane include skulls of Daedra, flame skulls, and wraith lanterns. Strange horses, senshei, and wolves are often conjured from this plane, although many relish on the idea that these creatures are simply summoned using illusion magic. The fourth sinus of Taku-Bar, also known as DOP 9497.15, called Taku-Bar for short, is a pocket dimension of Oblivion, and the home of the cold flame Atranax. It is a plane of immense cold, where the earthly connections of the bedrock shift apart and stream like lava. It is the polar opposite of Infernus, a plane of immense heat. Taku-Bar was revealed by the inhabitants of Cold Harbor after Moloch Bal eradicated normal flame Atranax from his plane. Frost mares are speculated to derive from this plane. Gaia Alada, also known as Paradise, was a realm of oblivion developed by Mankar Camoran. It was created by Camoran to be a lateral plane for the Deadlands. It was a paradise only for Camoran and his children. For as adherents it was confinement and a torture chamber. The realm was eradicated during the Oblivion Crisis. During the Oblivion Crisis, Camoran pilfered the Amulet of Kings and escaped with it to Gaia Alada. However, Martin Septim identified how to access it and opened a portal for the Champion of Cyrodiil, who entered Gaia Alada, encountered and defeated Mankar Camoran, and took back the Amulet of Kings. With Mankar killed, his paradise plane of oblivion disappeared with him. The Gorge is a slim veiled plane of oblivion, which plays as a partition between Boethia's and Clavicus Vile's realms. It is a realm of constant hunger and need, characterized as a famine and anguish so insufferable that the Daedra who reside there are driven to eat anything in sight, including each other, to satiate their endless starvation. The apex of them is known as the Insatiable, a hunger of great power and cunning. The Gorge adheres itself to the very membrane of Mundus, ever gnawing to no avail to break through the membrane. Because of this plane parallels a more disturbing, horrifying version of Nirn, nearly identical with exception to the fleshy abscesses and Daedric monsters who inhabit it. It is understood to be home to hungers, scamps, ogrim, Daedrats, fiendras, red torchbugs, and watchers. The Insatiable can be conjured to Nirn through a Daedric ritual. Once conjured, it will endlessly feed on all life it sees, utilizing the essence it consumes to pass easily between the gorge and Nirn in order to ensnare its prey. Mortal mages brave enough to encounter the horrors of the gorge can also pass freely between these realms by crafting an anchor of sorts utilizing their own vitality at a location where the barrier between the gorge and Nirn are its thinnest. When they are done, the anchor will grant them easy and permanent passage among the planes until the sigils are extinguished. This ability can also act as a clever and powerful means of entering Nirn undetected. In the Second Era 583, the Court of Bedlam commanded a cultist named Tyranniel to carry out a deal with the Unsatiable. She crafted an anchor to the plane utilizing an archaic Aldmeri shrine in the destroyed vaults of Hainarwi in the Somerset Isles, and afterwards conjured the Insatiable to the neighboring Seitarn Keep to keep the defenders of the keep busy. The occupants began to get consumed and devoured by the hunger, causing the divine persecution to secure the keep and begin investigating. Not much progress was made until Silary, a former member of the divine prosecution, appeared at the keep and utilized holy magic of Sendar to get on the Daedra's tracks. Silary arrived at the gorge and trailed the Insatiable to its den. It was quickly defeated, although unfortunately a part of the group had become stuck in the plane and were captured by the cultist Tyranniel, who had plotted to sacrifice them in an attempt to rebuild the Insatiable. Eventually, the vestige had discovered Tyranniel's anchor and was able to enter the gorge to slay Tyranniel and rescue those who had become trapped. The Havoc Wellhead is a plane of oblivion occupied by many various Daedric clans in the service of Mehrunes Dagon. It was once reachable through use of the Battlespire, but the connective network was severed after its annihilation during the Imperial Simulacrum. To activate the portal to it, 3 keys must be fixed into the gate lantern. An arena is located there for righteous fights among the Daedric clans, and preliminary intelligence tests occur for reasons unknown. The armies of Mehrunes Dagon utilized the plane as a form of headquarters during the invasion of the Battlespire. An apprentice mage from the Spire had entered the realm to rescue a fellow apprentice. The hero had become friend of Imago Storm of Clan Gamora, who was against Dagon's invasion of the Battlespire. Imago desired for Dagon and his forces to be dispelled into the Void of Oblivion, so that he could restore Clan Dagon to cohesion in their vacancy. Imago vowed the hero his assistance from Gamora's servants, and gifted him the neonymics of Dagon, Civili, and Phaedra, which would grant him the ability to dispel those Daedra. The hero paved their way to the 2 other Daedra lords of the plane, Civili Moath of Clan Civili, and Phaedra Shardai of Clan Shardai, fooling them and exiling them to retrieve their keys. But before the hero could escape, a servant of Yegar Tharn had appeared, and explained Tharn's fraudulent reign and Dagon's act in it. The hero killed him for being disloyal to the Empire, and utilized the keys to escape from Havoc Wellhead. Infernus, also understood as DOP6, is a pocket dimension of Oblivion. It is a realm of immense heat and molten rock and lava, and is the native home of the Flame Atronachs. It is quite familiar to conjurers because of how common it is to conjure Daedric Atronachs from this realm. Even though Infernus is recognized as an incredibly organized and grounded realm, the existence of Infernus is not created by any singular entity. Rather, it was created as an expansion of the Flame Atronachs who inhabit it. Planes such as Infernus and Taku-Bar are quite unique. However, they are rather banal and homogeneous, and the near-infinite streams of lava and molten rock of Infernus is no exception. The ruling body of Infernus is not known, and no class or ranking has been observed because of problems involving distinguishing Flame Atronachs from each other. The plane may have been under the rule of Mehrunes Dagon during the invasion of the Battlespire, when Flame Atronachs were under control of the Daedric Shardai clan. This realm was also once visited by the demi-prince Fa Nui Ten. Levins is a pocket dimension of Oblivion, and is home to the Storm Atronachs. It can be presumed that Levins is a collective realm, analogous to Infernus and Taku-Bar, created as an expansion of its Storm Atronach inhabitants. If so, the plane would be quite prosaic and systematic in appearance, such as Infernus and Taku-Bar. Levins is well understood to more high-level conjuration magic users, and Storm Atronachs take a roughly humanoid shape. Powerful conjuration magic users can constrain Storm Atronachs to take a specific form to their liking, such as a mount. Corvus Dereni is an acclaimed expert in this field. Lord Valen's plane was a small pocket dimension of Oblivion, constructed in the Second Era 582 by a representative of the Bloodthorn cult named Lord Valen. It was crafted through a necromantic ceremony after the settlers of Eaglesbrook in the Cambrai Hills region of High Rock were turned into undead. The plane was a duplicate of the town, filled with demolished buildings and twisting vines. The sky was orange, and the only occupants were the Daedra Banekin and Valen's Shade. The neighborhood mage, Marion Celan, discovered Valen's necromantic ceremony and traveled to the plane to stop him. He authorized himself to be voluntarily abducted in order to disintegrate the plane, which led to him killing himself. His son Tamian requested the vestige to infiltrate the plane and defeat Valen, letting the mage depart prior to the catastrophe, but also permitting the cultists to escape with the undead infantry by ship. It is not known if Marion the mage was saved. Nevertheless, the plane had been disintegrated. Maelstrom is the plane belonging to the demi-prince Fa Nui Ten, the multiplier of motions known. It presents itself in the style of an arena, where mortal contenders can combat the demi-prince's minions, similarly to that of other Daedric or Tamrielic locales. The prison of Zecanas is a micro-realm of Coldharbour, to which Molag Bal exiled the Dremora Zecanas in response to an event titled the Seat of Tyranny Rude Cushion Incident. There, Zecanas is serving a term of 7 epochs. The realm bears affinity to the inside of one of Coldharbour's inhuman pyramid structures. It is brimmed with black soul gems. The realm of the Hist is told to be an incredibly mysterious plane of Oblivion. It is a lavish and green world, suffused with sentient trees known as the Hist. Other versions of these trees also reside on Tamriel and Blackmarsh, and also in Clavicus Vile's realm, the Fields of Regret. The Hist purportedly arrived in Tamriel from this plane of Oblivion in the Dawn era. The plane is also inhabited by Whisperils, vibrant luminous films that prance about in the air. Tamrielic mythos tells that, even with the Hist's impartiality, the realm of the Hist was largely eradicated when the Elnafey War had passed over it. A minute piece of the realm had survived the war zone and became what is today known as Blackmarsh, but the rest of it had fallen into the ocean. This entails that Blackmarsh is a shard of this realm, which was somehow severed by the conception of Mundus. In the early years of the Fourth Era, a large mass of Clavicus Vile's realm was severed from the other half by Umbra. This fragment of Oblivion became known as Umbriel, a colossal floating island. Umbriel had a large population of Hist trees, and in the Fourth Era 40, after Umbriel had appeared over Tamriel, a party of heroes managed to access the floating isle, and were able to dispel it back into Oblivion. Among these heroes was an Argonian named Maer Glim, who was rebirthed within Umbriel, creating a network with both the Hist of Umbriel and the Hist of Tamriel. When Umbriel had made its return to Oblivion, the Hist there piloted it to the realm of the Hist. The island and the city that was planted on it lodged itself deep into the marshy land. The nobles of Umbriel were in chaos and attempted to murder each other, but many left to make residency elsewhere in the realm. A distant spire is in view from the site of Umbriel, but it is unknown if it is an old building or simply a large rock. Saddal's prison is a minuscule pocket dimension of Oblivion, constructed by the Chimera to incarcerate Saddal, one of the brothers of Strife. It can be accessed from the caldera of the Tormented Spire in Varanus. It is a plain of lava and rock, with dispersed Daedric ruins. In the Second Era 582, Tanval Indoril tried to release Saddam from this confinement after the death of his son at the hands of the Daggerfall Covenant invaders. The forces of the Ebonheart Pact trailed him to the tormented spire and persuaded him not to do it. A small group, including Tanval, had entered Saddam's prison and killed him, permitting Saddam's Flame Atronach attendants to bind him anew. Tanval was killed in the battle after sacrificing himself. The Soul Cairn is a plane of oblivion where the trapped souls of mortals go when they die. This plane is not governed by any Daedric Prince, but it is instead governed by a group of enigmatic entities known as the Ideal Masters. When a mortal soul is captured by a black soul gem upon their death, their soul travels here to wander eternally. The Ideal Masters believe that mortals are being saved from trivial hardships and suffering and are given peace when they arrive here. In order to access the Soul Cairn, a mortal typically should be deceased, unless partially soul-trapped or undead, such as a vampire. This realm was once accessible through the Void Gate located in the Battlespire, but the connection was cut after its destruction. The Soul Cairn is brimming with all forms of undead. Some are exclusive to the plane, such as the Bone Men, Mist Men, and Wrath Men. Compelling mages once had conjured undead servants from this plane using long-lost magic, as these powerful spells were lost to time. In their insatiable need for souls, the Ideal Masters typically make pacts with necromancers. The necromancers are often given the capability to summon infantries of undead from the realm, but at the cost of their soul, and they often end up getting trapped in the plane instead. The Soul Cairn has a dreary and barren environment, with scattered charred-looking bones and ruins, open graves and fissures of souls. Nothing alive or organic grows in the realm, save for a dry and dead fungus called soul husks. The plane is home to many constructs that revolve around the theme of burial, such as the Coffin Chapel and the Boneyard. The Chapel of Love is a structure with the Emerald Gates, which is a portal that is used to travel to any of the outer realms, as long as whoever uses it simply knows the name of the realm in which they wish to travel to. The Emerald Gates are energized by the Mana Font, which is regulated by 3 rods, the Rod of the Pilot, the Rod of the Pillar, and the Rod of the Passage, all simply known as the Fingers of Life. Lightning bolts strike the ground every so often, and attractors can utilize the power of these bolts to forge black soul gems. The Ideal Masters, the rulers of this plane, stash a large amount of treasures which is guarded by many undead minions. They have assorted powerful minions such as the 3 Boneyard Keepers and the Reaper. The Ideal Masters also occasionally embody gems to communicate or safeguard their treasure with. In the Merethic era, a vampire lord named Valerica escaped to the Soul Cairn with a portal of her own production along with an Elder Scroll. The Ideal Masters, unable to claim her soul with her being undead, trapped her in the Boneyard and set up a force field around it, so she was unable to escape. Sometime after this, a dragon named Durnavir, who was ever hungry for mastery of Alok Dalon, or necromancy, had arranged a contract with the Ideal Masters in return for immense power. The Ideal Masters told him to act as Valerica's warden until her death, but refrained from telling him that she was an immortal vampire, and only after her death would they give him the power he so desired. After eras trapped in the plane doing their bidding, Durnavir's body accustomed to the surroundings in the realm, meaning he could never leave the Ideal Master's service even if he wanted to. Amid Mehrunes Dagon's invasion of the Battlespire, the Daedric forces entered this plane of oblivion as a sort of terminal between their own realms and their newly won realms. This angered the Ideal Masters, as the Daedra were pillaging their realm for treasures and killing all undead minions who were in service to the Ideal Masters. A number of mortal slaves were brought to this realm and killed by the Daedric invaders, ensnaring their souls forever until they were liberated. An apprentice battle mage from the Battlespire traversed to this plane on a mission to rescue a fellow apprentice. This hero was able to free many of the trapped souls, and was assisted by the Ideal Masters to escape the plane through the Emerald Gates. The apprentice was successfully able to stop the massive Daedric invaders in the Soul Cairn by inflicting their holding on their newly conquered realms and territories. In the Third Era 433, Saint Giab was soul-trapped by Dromora during the attack on Kvatch and Cyrodiil, and was sent to the Soul Cairn because of this. In the Fourth Era 201, The last Dragonborn and their companion Serana, Valerica's daughter, managed to enter the Soul Cairn in pursuit of Valerica and the Elder Scroll. They were able to defeat many undead servants in service to the Ideal Masters, along with Durnavir, in turn gathering the Elder Scroll and continuing on their quest. The Village of the Lost is a sub-realm of Coldharbour, Molag Bal's Plane of Oblivion. It was created during the Plane Meld when he tried to fuse Oblivion with the Mortal Plane. The Village of the Lost is not directly part of Coldharbour, but is really 3 villages that were abducted from Tamriel and manifested in the plane after being tricked in dealings with Dromora. This included a small town in Vardenfell called Silverrun, a Khajiit village of Kaj-Yahaj, and an Orcish town called Dushnik's Shadow. These towns were skewed among the Isles of Floating Rock, and the townspeople's souls had been captured. As it was formed, the plane was completely coated in a substance called azurplasm, which is primordial chaotic matter that is quite a common sight in Coldharbour, and which all matter of Oblivion is made out of. The rulers of each village had survived the merging, although remained as soul-shriven. Daedra and undead of all kind also thrived in this plane in order to protect it. In the Second Era 582, a group of Tamrielic forces had intruded upon Coldharbour in an endeavour to stop the plane meld. They filed in from a portal to the Village of the Lost, slaughtering many of its Daedric inhabitants. The souls of the leaders of the villages were also rescued and liberated by the Tamrielic forces. A follower of Meridia named Mezadro entered this plane of Oblivion to mend the tears in Oblivion that had occurred, and avoided further parts of Tamriel from clipping through into the plane.